What's up, everybody? Tonight, I will be given a complete breakdown of why anyone who says Q is a LARP is most likely a paid shill, just trying to scare normal people away from reading Q drops.
You guys know what this represents?
Tell us, sir.
Maybe it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storm?
Could be the calm before the storm. You'll find out.
This video will prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that the QAnon operation is being run directly from President Trump's White House. This journey begins with the very first Q drops on the afternoon of October 28, 2017. Now this is what Trump posted that very same morning, quote, "Best consecutive Qs in years." He didn't say quarters, the obvious meaning to anyone reading this. He specifically said Qs. Okay, now Q didn't go by Q in these first few posts. It actually wasn't until a few days later, on November 1st, titled the post "Q Clearance Patriot," alluding to the Q level clearance, which is the highest clearance someone can have in our government, that he began going by Q. But this is what Q did on that first day. He asked a series of consecutive questions. So, on the morning of October 28th, Trump posted "Best consecutive Qs in years," and later that day, Q posted this: "Where is Huma? Why does POTUS surround himself with generals? What is military intelligence? Why go around three-letter agencies?" And on and on. This was the very beginning of the Q post, and I felt a great place to start because that's how the Q posts are mostly, in question form. Most shill outfits like to point this out as cryptic, but the majority of them are easily answered, and a lot of them essentially are statements in question form. The point of the question format, in my opinion, was to get everyone researching. Everyone, including myself, who found Q on November 5th, 2017, we all set off to answer these questions and found that they all led to a very similar, extremely dark places. And now, with all that being said, we can begin. Now, this next example was also a case of Trump posting first and then Q explaining afterwards. This will be the last instance of that. From here on out, all others will be Q posting first and then Trump or something happening that confirms it. But on November 6, 2017, at 4:15, Trump tweeted, quote, "Massive military and energy orders happening, plus, plus, plus." Now, the media jumped on the plus, 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 making fun of him as they do every single day about something, yawn. But what they didn't see is that less than an hour later, Q posted, "Nothing is random, everything has meaning, plus, plus, plus." So what did the plus, plus, plus mean? Well, at that very time, there was a coup going on in Saudi Arabia. Prince bin Salman had held captive a number of prominent Saudi Arabian princes, government ministers, and business people at the Ritz-Carlton, including Twitter majority shareholder bin Talal, the same guy who also owned the upper floors of the Mandalay Bay where their Vegas massacre had been carried out from only a month earlier. As many as 500 people were rounded up. Saudi banks froze more than 2,000 domestic accounts, which according to Wall Street Journal were worth up to $800 billion. The allegations were of money laundering, bribery, extortion, and taking advantage of people for public gain. Now, the day before this Saudi purge, Q had been posting about how Saudi Arabia bribes U.S. politicians and are basically the money end of the global cabal. Q had been posting about Trump's trip to Saudi Arabia, asking why was this significant. Then bam, the very next day is a complete overhaul of corrupt Saudi officials. While this is going on with zero media coverage here in the States, the president makes a tweet with the last line saying massive military and energy orders happening. Plus, plus, plus. Energy? One of our biggest oil providers, Saudi Arabia? And what does this have to do with plus, 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 you ask? Well, plus, plus, plus is code for, you guessed it, Saudi Arabia, with plus, plus being Rothschild and plus being Soros. The next Q confirm was a pretty simple one. Here we have at 2:35, Q posted, "Confirm, go Twitter, P, act small." And then 5 minutes later, if you went to the President P Twitter, you can confirm that he posted about Small Business Saturday. So that's a fun, easy one. That happened pretty quick. Now here's another fun one. Here's an anon lamenting the disregard for our space program over the past few decades. And Q assures him that, quote, it's coming back in a big way. Pigly. Space is critical to our national security, to which I assumed he meant NASA was going to get a lot of their funding back, but that's not really in a big way. That's just sort of the way it was a while back. You know what is big, though? When Trump confirmed this assertion by Q and announced the newest branch of our armed forces,
the Department of Defense and Pentagon, to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the sixth branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement.
Now, our next Q confirmed comes from the WikiLeaks. You know, the website that has published mountains of dirt on the DNC that, for some reason, everyone refuses to read. Not only refuses to read, but are actually so mad it was released that they want people to go to jail over it. But on January 7th, 2018, Q posted, quote, Fire and Fury. The very same day, WikiLeaks uploaded a free version of the book. There were only two differences. Chapter 6 spelled home with a Q instead of an O, and Chapter 10 spelled Goldman with a Q instead of an O. Now, in one of the earlier Q posts, it had ended with the Our Father. It seemed odd thing to include in the post talking about 9/11 and how wars are orchestrated and planned by select families as, quote, mass extinction events. But sure enough, only a few weeks later, Pope Francis announced he would be making a change to the Our Father. But I suppose that's just a coincidence. Now here is speech where Trump mentions the elite and makes an air cue.
These people, I look at them, I say, that's elite? We got more money, we got more brains, we got better houses, apartments, we got nicer boats, we're smarter than they are, and they say, the elite, we're the elite, you're the elite.
Okay, this is a good one. Now here, this is the anniversary of Trump's election. He posted this image. So now the first thing people realize is that if you connect all the thumbs up, it makes a Q, which in itself is quite the coincidence. But even more definitively, when you go to save the original picture for him from Twitter, the randomly selected source code starts with do it Q. Now if that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. But now this next one was the absolute most eye-opening to me. Now, one of Q's early posts, he had stated, North Korea is not being run by Kim. He's an actor in the play who is the director. Now, at the time this seemed absolutely astounding. North Korea has been this overt threat for 50 years. This backwards land without electricity that was hell-bent on nuking us. Now Q is saying it's not even run by King John? It sounds good, but it's North Korea. It doesn't matter who runs it. It's trying to nuke us. So what's the difference? And the next day, Q made another odd statement, asking if it would blow your mind if Barack Obama had been to North Korea and perhaps was there now. He continues, why after Barack Obama left office did North Korea all of a sudden come up with nukes? That same day, Q mentioned the mountain which collapsed. We obviously blew it up. Funny how that was in and out of the news in a flash. Now, repeatedly Q over the next few days asked questions. Who really controls North Korea? Even suggesting that some of the money from the Iran deal went directly to North Korea. Now, finally, he asks who controls North Korea again, and then asks is who controls several agencies within the U.S., EU, and abroad, which would be the CIA. Now, on December 22nd, he confirms that by asking what do clowns do with access codes and tech? Who controls North Korea? Now, for those of you who are new to this, clowns in America is a nickname for CIA. So when he says clowns, that's what he's talking about. So, okay, the CIA runs North Korea, and through Uranium One, they were able to get uranium to North Korea, and throughout the Iran deal, they were able to get money there. So now, in January 2018, if everyone remembers, there was a big warning given that North Korea now has missiles that can reach the America mainland and the attack is imminent. So we heard these warnings about North Korea all our lives, so this wasn't so out of the ordinary. But then I noticed something. I was looking at this threat for the first time in my life with new eyes, and I took note of where the report came from. The CIA. It was the CIA who was warning of North Korea's imminent attacks. Now I realize everything I just read about North Korea was true, which also meant that Trump really was clearing them out of North Korea and essentially cleaning it up. Then, son of a bitch, North Korea announces they will participate in the Olympics. Everyone was shocked, but people following Q at the time were like, oh shit, this is happening. They were shocked for a different reason. Then, Kim Jong's sister appears with Pence, and Q reports that this means they have been freed. Sure enough, right after that, the peace talks are announced. Then the media reports that it's all blown up and the talks have been postponed and are not going to happen. But Q calmly responds and says talks will go on as scheduled. Sure enough, the talks go down as planned on the original date, and Kim Jong comes off looking less like an evil dictator, like he's been reported to us for all these years, and more someone who was just freed from a life of tyranny, all too eager to make a deal, smiling ear to ear. Wow. But of course, a few days later, a picture from 2014 of a kid in a cage was released, and even though it was later found out to be from Obama's time in office, it didn't matter. It did its job. The fanfare for what happened in North Korea was a distant memory by the end of the week, and a month of Trump locks kids in cages hysteria ensued. Makes you wonder how long they were waiting to release that. Okay, so now back to Pope Francis, who Q stated in April, quote, the Pope will have a bad May. Sure enough, early May, the Pope admitted to being part of the problem when pertaining to a huge sex scandal. Then, in May, 14 Chilean bishops all resigned at the same time from the Vatican after being linked to a child sex scandal. And then, at the end of the month, the Pope had even stated that he was considering retirement. I would say that's a pretty bad May. Now here we have President Trump pointing to a man in a Q shirt in a crowd in one of his rallies. So ask yourself this, President Trump's been being tagged in Q pose for, 9, 10 months, I forget exactly when this picture is from. But he has not once ever said anything about Q. Now, he's not exactly shy. I don't know if anyone noticed. Our president's not shy. He calls out fake news. Anytime politicians acting fake, Trump calls them out. Anytime the news is acting fake, calls them right out. Fake news. He has not once, one single time, come out and said that this guy who's been posting specifically about Trump, very deep intel in many cases, not once has he come out and either confirmed or denied him. But he does point to people wearing his shirts. He does make air cues.
We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much, Mississippi. Get out and vote. Thank you.
Now here, Q posted no name to return to news. Now, no name is McCain for anyone new to this, because Q had stated long before that the military people behind the scenes, they won't speak his name because he's such a bad person and all the bad things he's done. So he is known as no name in these posts. But McCain hadn't been in the news for a while at this point, not even on that day. So initially this one seemed like a dud. But lo and behold, exactly 1 month later, McCain did return to the news when it was announced that he was discontinuing his treatment. And then the very next day he died at the exact minute of that Q post. Now, knowing what you know about Q not wanting to name McCain and calling him no name, let's see how Trump feels about saying the name John McCain.
One person walked into a room when he was supposed to go this way, and he said he was going this way, and he walked in and he went this way, and everyone said, what happened? What was that all about? Boy, oh boy. Who was that? I don't know. I don't want to be controversial, so I won't use his name.
Now, a quick one, which is a personal favorite of mine, is when an anon asked Q if he could throw us a bone and add the phrase tip top into one of the president's speeches. Now, this was right before the night of the State of the Union, so obviously that speech had been written for a decent amount of time. But a few months later, Trump, while standing next to the Easter Bunny, which curiously had glasses on, just like the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, quote, follow the White Rabbit, being a popular Q saying, Trump did in fact inform the world.
We keep it in tip-top shape. We call it sometimes tippy-top shape, and it's a great, great place.
Which brings us now to promises made, promises kept. On March 8th, Q posted about Trump visiting the Forbidden City in China and ended it with, quote, promises made, promises kept. Well, 2 days later, at Trump's now famous rally in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, he had two slogans hung up: promises made, promises kept. Still think Trump isn't Q? December 5th, Q posts simply, "Wonder Friends." 2 days later, Trump posts, "Melania and I were thrilled to welcome so many wonderful friends to the White House." On June 12th, Q posts, "Castle arrival good." The next day, POTUS schedule post, "Good to be back at Castle." June 17th, Q posts, "Happy Father's Day" with an exclamation point. 7 minutes later, Trump posts exactly the same with nothing else. Now, in one of the creepier ones, Q posts, "Next week 3 times and then suicide weekend?" Well, sure enough, 3 weeks go by, and that weekend someone shoots himself in front of the White House. Now, May 12th, Q ended his post with "Say the course." 4 minutes later, Trump ended his tweet with a capitalized "Stay." This is a cool one, where now went on posted, "Q, if you're reading this, get POTUS to tweet wonderful day." The very next day, Trump made a post with both the words wonderful and day in it. Now, here's another fun one. Okay, so when sports teams win their respective championship, they always go to the White House and they'll be presented to the president with a jersey. Now, typically, they always get their number on it. For example, Obama got 44, Bush got 43, Clinton 42. However, Trump opted for each and every one to get the year 17 instead. Now, why would you break tradition like that? It's of note that Q is the 17th letter of the alphabet, which might shed some light on why Trump opted to call out his first 17 months in this post, as opposed to waiting one more for an even year and a half. Now here, on March 28th, an QAnon posted, "Free Flynn." Q responded, "Done in 30. Exactly 30 days later, the House Intelligence Committee released its report clearing Flynn's name. Now, speaking of Flynn, over the summer, people had posted that he signs his book, "Where we go one, we go all." Okay, this next one's a doozy. On January 19th, 2018, Q had stated that 13 members of Obama's cabinet and staff were using private email addresses to communicate. This one fell on deaf ears for 5 months, until being confirmed by the Office of the Inspector General's report that came out on June 14th, where it stated on page 118 that, quote, "Former President Barack Obama was one of the 13 individuals with whom Clinton had direct contact using her ClintonEmail.com account." It was also revealed in that report that the Clinton Foundation was linked to, quote, "crime against children" on the Anthony Weiner laptop. But we don't want to talk about that. I mean, did you see this? The way Trump took a sip of water? Oh my God. Now that's news. Now, this next one illustrates just how dangerous and real things are behind the scenes. But on February 18th, 2018, Q had posted "Protect 6/14/46" 2 times, which is the president's birthday. And sure enough, the very next day, a driver from Trump's motorcade is arrested by the Secret Service after having discovered a hidden gun. Now, on March 8th, Q posted the initials RT and a picture of a door. Seems odd, right? Until the headlines next week, "You're fired," the tweet that showed Rex Tillerson, RT, the door. Guys, this is just a bunch of coincidences. Q has clearly been disproven like 100 times. I love that comment. Q has been proven to be fake, right? Now, back on April 27th, Q had stated that Lisa Page was a cooperating witness. Sure enough, a few months later, it was revealed that Lisa Page is in fact a credible witness and cooperating. Now, this next gem goes back to December 24th, 2017, where Q simply posted this picture. Okay, it's a picture of Washington crossing in Delaware. What's the big deal? Well, the very next day on Christmas, the Department of Defense posted the same exact picture. Now, on January 7th, 2018, Q posted "Goodwin," with "win" in the brackets twice. Then 15 in brackets. Well, of course, this brought out the mathematician in me, and assuming that he was given whatever was in the brackets a value of 15, and it appeared twice, we have a so-called win-win situation. 15 plus 15 equals 30, and exactly 30 minutes later, President Trump posted thanking Michael Goodwin. Now, on 127, Q posted about John Perry Barlow, whistleblowers and stating at the end that nobody is safe. He also posted, "Heart attacks can be deadly." Well, wouldn't you know it, only a few days later, internet pioneer John Perry Barlow was found dead of a heart attack. Now, also in January of 2018, Q began posting little nods to the Rothschilds. On January 13th, Q made a post that looked mostly like code. He doesn't do this often, but typically these are assumed to be messages to their operatives on the field. But people noticed "fly," which months earlier Q had posted "Fly Rothschild Fly," and at the bottom it said "Happy Hunting." Okay, again, this one was cryptic, so it really wasn't given much thought. Well, the next day, Q posted status from Lindy Rothschild calling Trump a disgrace, saying, "We're closer than you think. Try to get some sleep. It must be difficult," which is a nod to when he had posted that they had heard she couldn't sleep and that they were listening. Now, a few days later, Q posted ++/+ TikTok. This was yet another nod to the Rothschilds, who were established as ++ prior to this when Q was breaking down the top of the cabal. Then, on that same day, Q started posting pictures of Rothschilds with the Pope, with Soros, who was single plus. Then later, a post that wouldn't initially be tied to the Rothschilds, where Q simply posted Black Forest. Now, the Black Forest is a place in Europe infamous for like hunting people and cannibalism. It's associated with the Brother Grimm's fairy tales going back, which, if you read the originals, were full of, pretty bad, pretty dark shit. They're full of human hunting and cannibalism, the whole nine. Q then posted "Happy Hunting. Set the truth free." Now, days later, the Rothschilds would sell an Austrian hunting estate the size of Manhattan for only a few $100 million. Pennies to the Rothschilds, who are worth over $1 trillion. They just sold the rest of that hunting property in Australia again for nothing to them, a few $100 million. These are trillionaires. I mean, people don't realize what $1 trillion is. The ratio of money that they have making $100 million, a fraction of a penny to us. If someone told you you could have a forest the size of Manhattan for 10 cents a year, would you ever sell that? $1 trillion is $1 million a million times. 1 million million. So here we have the Rothschilds selling a hunting estate the size of Manhattan on the heels of Q posting about them and Happy Hunting and the Black Forest, where they hunted humans like animals. And it's of note that they're not the only ones to have curiously tried to protect their money or have sold assets. The Rockefellers sold David Rockefeller's Maine estate for $19 million. Why? These estates stay in these families forever, hundreds of years. $19 million is a couple cents to them. George Soros also gave away $18 billion to his Open Society Fund. I mean, man, if you can't tell things are going on behind the scenes, then you're asleep at the wheel. Now, on November 25th, Q posted that border security equals national security. Well, 17 days or Q days later, the White House posted, quote, "Border security is national security." Now, on December 10th, 2017, Q posted "blunt and direct time." Then right after that, he stated that there will be a false flag. The very next day, a man from Bangladesh set off an explosive in New York City. BDT is the name of Bangladeshi currency, blunt and direct time. Now, this is one of my favorite proofs. On June 3rd, 2018, Q posted "Boom, boom, 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 a week to remember, dark to light, black unnecessary," in the shape of an upside-down 9mm. Well, 9 days later, on June 12th, was President Trump's meeting with Kim Jong-un. On that day, Q reposted this drop with a link to a video that we would later find out was what Trump had shown Kim Jong-un, which looked like this.
The future. Out of the darkness can come the light, and the light of hope can burn bright.
Dark to light. Later that day, President Trump tweeted a link to the exact same video on Facebook, revealing to us that he had shown it to Kim Jong-un. We already knew. Just like we knew about Allison Mack's plea deal 3 days before it happened. April 20th, the very night she was arrested, Q posted that she was naming names, but it wasn't until April 23rd that it came out that she was in fact negotiating a plea deal.
But we're going to win, and we're going to win big. You just watch. We have the cards. They don't.
Now here we have a Q post from December 4, 2017 that states, "Future proves past." Now what else does it say? It says, "Follow the wives and watch the news this week." So now if you fast forward to 1 year later, future proves past, to December 4, 2018, and think, watch the news this week and follow the wives, what was in the news? The very next day was George Bush's funeral, and if you followed the wives, you would see each one of them getting a special letter in their program, followed by a look of horror. And now, for what I would call my favorite Q confirm of all time, President Trump simply talking about how many times he's been in Washington.
You know, I told the story the other day. I was probably in Washington in my entire life 17 times. True, 17 times. I don't think I ever stayed overnight. You know what I'm getting at, right?
And that, my friends, is why it is mathematically impossible for Q not to be being run out of the White House by Trump and company. And then Q said one point, or a couple of points actually, that if less than 10 people know. Now I would say I should pretty obvious at this point that's President Trump, General Flynn, more than likely Admiral Rogers, and a handful of others. But they're giving you the play-by-play of draining the swamp. There is no news. These aren't news outlets, none of them. They're putting on a show and trying everything to do to not show you anything good that Trump's doing. This is just 100% hit job on Trump. So this right here is the only way to get news. That is why they put out article after article after article after article trying to get rid of Q. That's why you see people online going, "You believe Q? Q-tard?" Because they want everyone to think, "Oh, this is crazy." You know, they take things out of context and then solo it out. Or take things like, "Oh, Q says Mueller is working with Trump," which Q has never said ever. But you know, this is something that is on the boards that people say. But Q never said that. Trust me, the people looking into this know that this is never in a Q drop. But they run with it. And say, "Oh, look at this crazy conspiracy theory. You know, they say that JFK never died." You know, JFK, someone who was shot on camera. You know, this is what Rolling Stone does. They conveniently leave off the Junior, which a lot of people do think is still alive and faked his own death. But again, did not come from Q. It actually came from people noticing in a Trump rally where he said very important people were here, that someone looked an awful lot like Carolyn Bessette, and someone also next to her looked an awful lot like JFK Jr. But this never came from Q. But that's what they said. But they picked that. No, they don't want to pick any of the things I just went over to tell you about Q. No, they want to pick that and leave off the Junior and make you think that we actually think someone who was shot on camera on national TV is still alive 50 years later. But anyway, now you have a comprehensive list of what we've been watching in real time since November of 2017. Go to QAnon.pub, put it on your phone, check it out from time to time. It's just going to show you what is going on behind the scenes right now so you can stay ahead of the fake news. Where we go one, we go all.